මේක තමයි ෂුවර් නෑ මේ හතරට ඕකේ කියලා දාන්නද සිංගල් ක්ලාස් එක? පහ හය තමයි දියුනේ. හ්ම්? ඒ කියන්නේ? පුළුවන් අනිත් කියන්න කියලා දෙනවා. ඉබර ගන්නවා මේවා. මේ කොයි ඉවරයිද? කොහෙද නැද්ද? කොයි
Hi, good evening. Can
Good
you
evening.
hear me? Good.
Yes, madam.
We have only three students. Okay, so shall we wait 2-3 minutes? Because there are more in this batch now, more than three anyway. Okay,
Okay.
wait 1 or 2 minutes at least. Right. Okay, right. Let's start the discussion. Mm, right. Uh, so can all of you hear me?
Yes, madam.
All right. Okay. Now, actually, this is the first slide of our previous note, but I have discussed this area now, right? So I will come to today's topic. Mm, hmm. Right. Okay. So this is the topic I have to start today's discussion with. Okay. Hope you all remember what we were talking about previously. Actually, I do not want to have another discussion, but we have already discussed about these topics. Just right. We talked about language learning theories. Under that learning a language, we discussed, right? So today we need to look at these three subtopics: second language pedagogy, language as a rule governed behavior, language as a skill. Okay, right? And after that, if we have yeah time left, I would move on to the next area as well, right? Although I have not sent you the notes, right? If the time permits, we'll see, right? Anyway, now we will pay our attention to this topic now. This is one of the subtopics on second language pedagogy, right? Now, I told you now here in these units, there are several different areas with subtopics, right? And these different areas very lengthy, like very short areas, but they are giving you different perspectives of the same topic, same main topic. Okay, so now here in this small area, we talk something about the second language pedagogy, right? That means the educational aspect of the second language. There you are exposed to some ideas, right? Some information about teaching and learning the second language. Okay, let's see what we have there. Yeah, wait a minute. Just check whether uh, I think I have discussed this area, haven't I?
Yes, madam.
Yes, that's the thing, right? Second language pedagogy we discussed last during the last session, because I was talking about this Puka mother tongue, right? That means the first language experience, negative transfer and positive transfer, facilitation, which we identified as facilitation and interference. Yeah, I was talking about the second language pedagogy, right? Okay, so therefore, actually, I don't want to repeat the same area. So we will move on to the next topic then, right? Language as a rule governed behavior. Right. Okay. So then what do you think about this actually? Now don't think that this is also another lengthy area. This is another short area. You need to understand the basic point. That means language or any language, right? It can be the first language or second language or any kind of language. It has a particular property, right? Special property. A language has a property. That means language is rule governed. That is the idea, right? There are so many characteristics or properties of language. Among them, this is one. Any language is rule governed, right? So what do you understand by this? That means there are, okay, simple ideas. Before I move on to the note, I'm just briefing the idea here. Rule governed behavior means, or the property of rule governed behavior, that means language is functioning, right, with rules. The language is manipulated by the rules. And in other words, actually, language functions based on rules or based on a set of rules, which we identify as grammar rules. Okay, that is the basic idea you need to get to your mind from this point. And we can talk about this from different aspects. Okay, if we move on to the note, here you have this opening line talking about the bond between language form and its meaning, right? The very purpose of learning a language is to establish a bond between the language form and its meaning, right? Now you can simply understand that idea. Right? Now, actually, what do we mean by learning a language? Right? We acquire our mother tongue or first language, and we learn the second language, we learn the foreign language, right? We learn a language. Actually, in learning a language, what is really happening? We establish a bond, or we create a kind of link between two things. What are the two things? One is the language form. Language form means symbol, right? It can be either oral symbol or written symbol, right? Symbol and its meaning. So what is being represented by that symbol? Meaning is that. Okay, like if you say pen, pen is the language form. Pen, I pronounce it, so that is the oral symbol, pen. And meaning is the particular object which we visualize when we hear the word pen, right? The object which is represented by the symbol pen. Okay, so language learning means we try to create a link between this form and its meaning. That is the simple idea behind learning a language. Okay, right. Then this idea is proved by some psychological test of condition learning. Right? Condition learning is actually a theory, right? Condition learning, where we talk about learning a language or acquiring a language with stimuli, right? Through stimuli and responses. Especially, you can find this feature among the animals. Okay, stimulus response. Now, even in human children, you find this. Are you familiar with this term, stimuli and response? Responses.
Yes,
Both
ma'am.
are in the plural form. Stimuli and responses. Have you heard this term? Yeah?
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah. In the sense now, when we talk about the theories, right? First language acquisition theories, we find this in one theory. It's down there, right? Behaviorist theory. Can you remember the behaviorist theory? I think you have met it earlier, right? In whatever discussion, I myself have referred to behaviorist theory and also cognitivist theory, you know, right? So these are some theories that specify, especially behaviorism, right? Introduced by the Skinner, right? Behaviorism talks about, actually behaviorist theories based on stimulus and response principle, SR principle. You need to remind that stuff, right? SR principle, what do you mean by that? A child acquires language by responding to the stimulus provided to that child, right? Responding can happen in different ways. Mostly, responding means imitating, right? Imitating what is being said to the child by the parents or caregivers or the adults who are surrounding that child, right? Imitation, SR principle, imitation, reinforcement. These are the key ideas as well as key terms in behaviorist theory. Right? So condition learning is something where we talk about learning a language through stimuli and responses. This happens among the human children as well as animals, okay? Right? And also to that we talk about, we add habit formation also, right? That means according to behaviorist, human child acquires language through habit formation. That is one idea, perspective presented regarding the first language learning or first language acquisition. So that is one aspect. Talking about learning language here. The earlier we have discussed about these theories, but here also we are meeting them. Yes, we are talking about the rule governed nature of language, no? Right. The other aspect is cognitivist theory. Okay, now you know about cognitivist theory, that is cognitivism. There we talk about the functions in the brain, right? The thinking capacity, the intelligence of the human beings. Depending on that, learning language, right? The language learning is decided by the capacity of the humans to think and to act accordingly. And also further, according to the intelligence level, right? Cognitivist theory. That is a very basic idea, but there is a lot discussed in cognitivism, right? So there are different perspectives presented, yeah, talking about the language learning. Right. So human beings have to apply their senses in language use according to the demands of the situation. Right. Now here, you know about like according to the context, so according to the situation where the person is using language, right? He or she has to use the senses as well, right? You know about the senses in using language. Now here you have an example of a parrot. Now what do you think about parrot using language? Parrot can be trained to speak, but how far it will change its learning to use it in different situations? What do you think about that? Now, parrot talking, talking parrot would be like, what do you understand? Do you think that parrot really understands what it tells? What about your experiences or your ideas about that? Parrot using language. Now, some people go to parrot and ask, na, right? Petto bat kawal? And parrot is responding also. So, do you think that these parrots have really understood the human language? Any idea? Yeah. Do you think parrots can understand English or Sinhala or even Tamil? No idea. It is coming through training. That's the point. Okay. Now these parrots, not only the parrots, right? Most of the animals whom we think are talking, right? They are responding to the sound stimulus, right? Sound stimulus provided to them. Accordingly, they they are trained to respond. They are trained to answer back. That's it. Otherwise, uh, they do not really understand what is being said to them. So therefore, it is a question that here we are talking about parrot, right? So it's a question that whether how to what extent, right? Parrot can change the language even according to the different situations. Can a parrot change its use of language is a question. Okay, right? That actually questions the use of language by a parrot. Skills of substitution are not possible in animals. Yeah, this is not available in animals. That is why this parrot situation is doubtful. Okay, right? They can't substitute, you know, what substitution means? That we use something instead of another thing. In Sinhala, we have the term adishaka. We use something instead of another thing. But thing is, although humans can substitute words for other words, animals can't. So they are kept on repeating or telling the same utterance. Okay, they can't substitute. So that itself shows us that the animals are not competent, right? Now they can't use language by comprehension. They can't comprehend and use language. Right? Talking about like humans' use of senses. So that is direct contrast when you talk about the humans' use of language, right? Yeah. Now, when you compare the animal situation with the human child, child picks up the system he is capable of using the substitution, right? Children can use substitution, and the child makes mistakes in the beginning but gets corrected in the course of the learning and soon becomes a perfect user of language. Okay, so substitutions are possible in human children, which is not possible in animals. And we cannot determine the number of sentences possible in a sentence. Sorry, possible in language, right? Could you please check your notes here? This should be changed to language, not sentence. Number of sentences possible in a language. Change your note, please. There are all possibilities to frame new sentences, though there are more sentences available for the situations. Yeah. Okay, now when you look at this idea, right? When you read this part, you should remember one property of language. When you are paying our attention to the characteristics or properties of any language, right? Among them, we have one which is called productivity or creativity. That is what we are talking here, right? Productivity of language or creativity of language. Actually, productivity of language means we can produce endless number of utterances or even sentences in a language using limited resources like vocabulary, grammar rules, sentence patterns. These are all limited, right? Limited. So using these limited number of resources on one hand, on the other hand, we can produce unlimited number of productions. Productions here means utterances or sentences. That is the productivity. So human language has this productivity, whereas the animal language does not have this property, right? Okay, now we are talking about the rule governed nature. So how do you relate this property to the rule governed nature? We can produce novel utterances, which means new utterances day by day, right? Hour by hour. All the time we can produce totally new utterances, but still all these utterances fall into a structure. Although they are new, right? Still they fall into a predetermined structure, which we call grammar rules. Whatever or however number of utterances you create, all these utterances are governed by rules. Okay? So deliberately or without knowing, we produce new utterances still according to the existing grammar structure of language. That is the point you have to uh, understand, right? And relate here. So there are more situations that may arise by some means, like especially with the coinage of new words getting at a fast pace. So thank into the developments in science and technology and computers, right? We have new words, right? Coinage of new words. New words are being added day by day, right? And many new patterns of sentences have been coming. Though we know there are 5 basic sentence patterns. Now, how many sentence patterns do you know? Just one simple question. How many do you know? Sentence patterns? More than 5, right? We know more than 5 sentence patterns, but basically we say there are 5 patterns. But these basic 5 patterns, right? 5 basic patterns can be amended according to the requirements that are arising from our new needs, our necessities. right? New patterns can be created based on the existing pattern. So the idea is we create new words, we coin new words, and we create new sentence patterns, right? These things are happening because human languages are productive. But still, right, although we create new words, new sentences, new phrases, even new sentence patterns, all underneath, right, underneath all these null expressions, right, there is this rule governed nature, right? Everything is rule governed. Everything which we create anew is rule governed. Otherwise, nobody will accept them. Nobody will even recognize them, right? Just think that you create a sentence which is not grammatical. You don't, usual sentence pattern is subject, verb, object. If we talk about English language, but you violate that pattern, right? You violate it and you just use it in a different way, different order. You order the words in a different manner. Do you think the others will recognize what your meaning? No, they will never understand it. So automatically, right, we all are rule governed when we use language. If in any situation anyone is not rule governed, what will happen is that non-grammatical expression will not exist, will not find its place in the language. It will be rejected. Okay, right. Uh, yeah. Here we are continuing with the example of the child, right? The child can master the patterns, these patterns of his mother tongue at a fairly early age. We were talking about child acquiring the mother tongue, no? Right? Then, these mother tongue patterns are acquired by a child at a like fairly early age, means like around 2.5, 3 years, right? The child will acquire the patterns of the mother tongue. 3 plus then, right? 3.5, 4, 4.5. Then he is developing the mother tongue structures. The assimilation of these patterns of grammar takes place in the critical period of learning. And when you think about the first language acquisition, you meet this term, this concept. Actually, this is presented as a hypothesis, critical period hypothesis. In the form of hypothesis, this is given, but you might know the rough idea about this concept. Critical period, every human child passes through the critical period, right? What do you think about the critical period? In critical period, what does happen? The assimilation of these patterns of grammar takes place. Assimilation here means a combination or integration, right? So we in the sense the human child combines the patterns, the structures of the mother tongue, right? During the critical period of learning. Actually, what is this critical period then? You have the idea here. It lies between 2 years and adolescence. Okay. Now, normally we say a child at the age of 10 or 12, right? 10 to 12, that range, a child masters his first language or mother tongue. That means when the child grows up to 12 years old, right? At that age, the child has mastered the grammar patterns, vocabulary, usage, functions, forms of his mother tongue. That is what is meant by critical period. So, actually, we can say a child starts uh, acquiring the mother tongue from 2.5 or 3 years, right? Up to he's mastering the mother tongue by the age of 12, maximum 13, right? Okay, so that is the critical period. Okay, this characteristic of internalization of grammar into automatic habits that language is concerned is what you exactly call rule governed behavior, right? Internalization, this is the idea. So I'll highlight it. Internalization of grammar into automatic habits. Hope you can catch the idea, the basic idea behind this sentence, right? Internalization of grammar into habits that are being done automatically, automatic habits without thinking too much, right? Without, like, not deliberate, automatically. Even subconsciously, things are happening now, right? So internalization of grammar into automatic habits means you uh, when you tell certain things, right? When you tell or when you use orally or even in writing your mother tongue, okay, you use grammar. Automatic habits means your linguistic habits. Remember, okay. Otherwise, we are not talking about collecting stamps or sleeping or reading, nothing like that. Right? They are habits, even hobbies, but automatic habits means automatic linguistic habits. Now here, what is happening? Here I am speaking and you all are listening. Okay. So we are not doing these things deliberately. Okay. I speak deliberately. I plan and with a purpose, I speak. But sometimes we speak without a big plan, right? Without, we are just talking. Then, if we can use grammar correctly when we are just talking, right? That is meant by the language is rule governed. That means internalization of grammar into automatic linguistic habits. Okay, right. Habits that language is considered. Actually, there's another part of that here, right? That is what I meant by linguistic, the word linguistic. Okay. If we do not use grammar when we talk or write, then we can't say the rule governed behavior is available in language. But we use grammar, right? We use grammar. At least people try to use grammar, try to follow grammar. So therefore, we can't get rid of this property of language. Languages are rule governed. That's the idea. Okay, so you get the key idea of what do you mean by language is rule governed from this underlying part by myself. Okay, that is the key idea. That is what we were talking about. Okay, right. Then we have another sub topic with the discussion of language as a skill. Yeah, language. We talk about language now, right? And we talk about language learning. Then what is this language? It is considered to be a skill, right? Not a knowledge or not a subject. Language is authentically called a skill rather than a subject. The skill of language is not altogether an intellectual activity, right? It is more of doing than of knowing. So these are very important ideas you need to get when we talk about the nature of language. Okay, we say language is not a subject. That is clear, right? Normally in schools also we have so many subjects like mathematics, science, social studies, uh, etc. Among them we have language also, right? English language. Okay. But exactly speaking, what do you think about the difference between these so-called subjects and language? Although language is used as a subject in the school curricula, right? Language is not a subject. It is not a content subject. It is a skill. Now, you know the meaning of the word skill, right? In Sinhala, we say kusalatave, right? There are three purposes behind education. I know about these three purposes. Anybody likes to tell about these three purposes of education? Today you are very silent, right? Still nobody talked. What are the three purposes of education? The purposes, so you can identify them as goals, whatever. Three, education. When we talk about education, when we educate, if there are teachers among you, you know what I'm asking. No idea. So, Maya, today you all have decided not to talk. Huh? Can anyone hear what I'm telling?
Yes, ma'am.
It seems that only you hear. No response from the others. Yeah, Sumaya, then you tell me. What are the three goals behind education?
Personal development.
Jaza, yes?
Personal development.
Okay. Three. Any other idea? What are the three things you give to a child by giving him the education?
Social responsibility and personal development.
What is the first one you said?
Personal development.
And?
Social responsibility.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, very good attempt, Shaza. What about the others? That is a common fact actually, right? Everybody usually refers to these three goals of education, right? When, yes?
Attitudes, skills, and knowledge.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Right, Rashmi? Thank you. We, by means of giving education to a person, what do we give, right? We give the knowledge to that person, and we make him capable of doing certain things. That means skills are improved in that person, and also we equip that person with attitude, with positive and proper attitude. Skills, knowledge, attitude, these are the three things that are given with education, not only the knowledge, right? So people mistake this. Education means educating somebody means giving only knowledge. No, it's not only the knowledge. It should be the skills. I mean, inculcating the proper attitude and making the person uh, equipped with some skills. Okay, right. So now we will come back to our discussion of language. Here, language we identify as a skill, not as a knowledge or content knowledge. Okay. The skill of language is not altogether an intellectual activity. It is more of doing than of knowing, right? If you have language skills, actually, what do you mean by that? If you say that you have language skills, you are capable of doing a lot of things by using language rather than knowing something about language, right? Capable of doing. In learning the mother tongue, the child acquires the ability to understand others speak, which means the child starts developing listening skills. Now here again, we are coming to the discussion of the child, right? First language acquisition of a child or of an infant. So what is happening? This acquisition of the skills, how the skills are acquired in an order within the infant. First, the listening skills. Because at first, what does happen? The child listens to the environment, to what the others say to that child, okay, and tries to understand. Listening skills are there. Then the child tries to reproduce the sound sequences to express its thoughts and feelings. Right. Not only listening, no, right? Where at very first stage, the child is listening, but soon after that, it is combined with speaking, because the child tries to produce its own utterances in response to these listening stimulus. So then it is the skill of speaking. Yeah. The skills of listening and skill of speaking are called the skills of even the illiterate, right? Which means that even illiterate people can acquire these skills when they are acquisition rich environment. You know what illiterate means, right? Those who can't read and write. Illiterate people means those who do not have the ability or proper skills of reading something and comprehending, or writing something and conveying the message in the mind. But still, even according to this argument, what do we say? Even the illiterate people have these two skills, listening and speaking. You know that very clearly, now. If you know about any person who can't write, who can't read and write, still that person can listen and speak. No? So these are two basic skills of language. And after speaking, as we want all our children to be literate, then what will happen? We introduce the skill of reading and the skill of writing. So that comes quite after, right? Listening and speaking skills. Reading practice from the textbook should start after about a few months of oral. That means listening, speaking practice. Always remember that is LSRW. That is the order. LSRW. L, listening, speaking, reading and writing. Oh, right? That is the proper order. This order is there according to the order of acquisition, right? First, a person acquires the listening skill, and after that, the speaking skill. Then, quite later, the reading skill. Finally, only writing skill, right? Finally, language learners need to acquire the skill of writing, right? Okay, writing comes after reading. So that way, as the four skills, L, S, R, W, are acquired to use the language is a skill, right? That is the idea. Then you should know, why do we say language is a skill? Because it incorporates the combination of all the four skills. And at the same time, you should know the order of acquisition, right? Order of acquisition. So the best situation for you to understand it and remember it is in relation to first language acquisition of a child. It's very clear because child first acquires listening skill, as I earlier told, then the speaking skill, then later on in his life, after he starts schooling, right? Reading skill, after the reading skill, starts to write things, right? Writing skill. Okay. Yeah. Interrelationship of language skills then. So we have four skills now. What are the connections? How these four skills are interconnected? That's what we are going to discuss in this part. Right. Now, you know, we can have several categories. We can categorize these four skills into several sections actually, right? You know, listening and reading are passive skills. Oh, you know this term, I think, right? Receptive skills or passive skills. They are listening and reading because you do not do anything there, right? In the sense, you do not produce any on your part. Instead, you get the things to yourself from outside. You receive something. That is why we call them receptive or passive skill. While listening, what you do now, just like what you do now, right? While listening, you all are listening now, right? So you listen to the sounds and try to decode the message inside your brain, try to understand, and then try to interpret, right? Okay, you do all these things. It's something that comes from outside to you. The same thing happens when you read, okay? What does happen? We read something written by somebody else and we try to decipher the message by reading the lines. We try to understand the message conveyed by somebody else. Okay, so they are passive skills or receptive skills. as the learners receive or acquire the language from listening and reading, right? Then on the other hand, when you talk about speaking and writing, they are active skills, also called productive skills. Because you produce language on your own. You need to think, you need to combine utterances, combine words, you need to form words, then combine these words together to form phrases and sentences with meaning. So which means you need to produce something on your own. So this thing happen orally and in writing with these speaking and writing skills. Okay, so this is the basic division. All the 4 skills into receptive and productive skills. And at the same time, there are some other classifications. Here you have it. Listening and speaking, which demand the exercise of the auditory and speech. Right? Exercise of the auditory and speech are called oral skills. Oral skills. The pronunciation is the same actually. More or less the same, but the spellings are different in this word, right? Oral, A-U-R-A-L, oral, O-R-A-L, right? Okay, A-U-R-A-L, oral means auditory. It involves listening and speaking skills involve auditory and speech productions, right? Auditory because you need to listen using your auditory organs. That means ears, right? Then the message, the sounds will be captured by the ear, right? Then the message is taken to the brain by the nerve cells. And inside the brain, the message is interpreted, understood, and then interpreted. And the responses are also created, right? And back, these responses are what? Put into sounds. These responses means the ideas the listener thinks no in response to what he hears. So these ideas or concepts are turned into sounds, right? And then using articulatory organs, the sounds are produced, articulated. So listening and speaking involve auditory and speech organs. That is why we call them oral skills. Whereas reading and writing are called graphic motor skills. Okay, reading and writing, graphic motor skills. Right. Graphic means something which we see here, right? So for us to read, there should be something there. Okay, written, the words in the graphic forms, the words can exist either in oral forms and graphic forms, right? Oral forms means now I'm producing oral forms. I'm speaking, right? So you get the words in the form of sounds there, sound combinations. But at the same time, I show you my screen, okay? Which means you get the words in their graphic forms. So you read the screen. You read the words that are displayed on the screen. You use your graphic skills. As well as if you are writing something, then your motor skills. As these 2 skills involve the visual and the psychomotor organs. Right? You know about the visual organs means you need to use the eyes in order to read something graphical, right? And psychomotor organs means you need to use your brain, the hemispheres, the interconnections between the 2 hemispheres, left and right hemispheres, and also the function of Broca's area and Wernicke's area. And many more components are there inside the brain, right? That helps produce language. So psychomotor organs means the functions, the brain functions, okay, are required in order to write, right? Okay, so that is another classification then. That means, okay, I will show you them. You also have this diagram, skills. Right? Basically, all the skills into productive and receptive. Then productive skills, what are the productive skills? Then speaking and writing. Whereas receptive skills are listening and reading. So these receptive skills we identify skills of comprehension. Another set of words, okay, comprehension and expression. So with receptive skills, we associate the word comprehension because comprehension means understanding. No? So you listen to something, you read something and understand there. So it involves the skills or ability of understanding. If you do not have the skills of comprehension, you do not have listening or reading capacity, proper capacity, right? Ability. Okay. On the other hand, when you talk about the productive skills, they are speaking and writing, and they are called skills of expression. You produce something, you express something on your own. Okay, for that you use speaking skill as well as writing skill. So be familiar with these terms actually, these key words, productive versus receptive, active versus passive, and skills of expression versus skills of comprehension. But the most important thing is not these terms, right? What are these skills? So these are the things, these two sets. This is how we categorize them, right? And we have another, the diagram, skills are divided into oral, and graphic motor. Now, here you have one classification, right? Skills in one classification into productive and receptive skills. And there's another classification, all the skills into oral skills and graphic motor skills. These are the things we discussed in the note, right? That are presented in the charts here. Then talking about oral skills, they are listening and speaking. And graphic motor skills are reading and writing. Okay, so this classification is different. Now here the branches are differently designed from the earlier classification, which means we can't group the skills under one category, right? That's the idea here. We can't group the skills in always into one category only. There are two classifications where we can categorize differently the same set of skills. That's what we discussed here. Okay, right. Yeah, we talk about teaching English. Teaching English as a skill rather than a knowledge subject. Okay, language anyway, any language, not only English, is a skill now, right? But here we now specify our discussions to teaching English as a skill rather than a knowledge subject. Yeah, then what do you think about that? Language is often called a skill subject rather than knowledge subject, right? So subjects like science, maths, history, they are knowledge subjects because there's a content, right? Content is given more prominence in this subject. Knowledge is involved means you need to grasp the content there. So therefore, they are called content subjects also, either knowledge subjects or content subjects. And rote memory is given prominence. Rote memory, what do you mean by rote memory? Any idea if you have? You have not heard about that term before? Yeah, could you please go through this and tell me what you mean by rote memory? Rote, you remember something by means of memorizing it repeatedly, right? You try to memorize something through repetition. Keep something in the mind by repeating it, by studying it repeatedly. It's the idea, rote memory. So when we talk about the content subjects, right, or knowledge subjects, we use this rote memory. It is given prominence, right? And you must have seen, even you must have done the same thing in your schooling time, right? We study some subjects, especially content subjects, by learning by heart. Isn't that true, right? We kept on memorizing certain things by repeatedly studying them, right? Or repeatedly telling and pronouncing. That kind of techniques we use to remember some contents, right? Okay, so that's the idea there. So rote memory is the main thing in talking about learning the content subjects, learning and teaching. But what do you think about English? That is a skill subject. So it doesn't have anything to do with rote memory because you don't have to know anything. Other than that, you should be able to do something. That's the point highlighted here. It is more a matter of doing than of knowing. Right? Now think about again the mother tongue. In learning the mother tongue, the first skill that a child acquires is the ability to understand the spoken word, the skill of listening. Then he tries to reproduce these sound sequences to express his own desires and needs and thereby acquires the skill of speaking. Right. Again, we mentioned about this illiterate person, right? But no need of repeating it here as well, right? Earlier I mentioned about this literacy, right? Then listening is doing something now, and speaking is also doing something. Okay, there's nothing for the child to know. It's not know in the sense, now don't mistake the word know here, right? There's nothing to know in the sense, what do we mean by that? There's nothing to try to keep in the mind by learning it by heart. No, nothing like that. Instead, talking about language learning, we have to know how to do something, how to get something done, right? How to listen to someone and how to express our ideas in the mind in using some sounds or words, sentences. All these things are doing things, right? Okay. So these skills are classified as passive and active skills, right? Listening and reading, I think we are repeating earlier points, right? Receptive and productive skills, oral skills, and graphic motor skills. Yeah. The strategies for teaching English should be based on considering it as a skill subject. This is the important line. This is the idea you need to take into consideration here. The strategies for teaching English should be based on considering it as a skill subject. Based. Otherwise, if you teach English to your students, just like considering it something like mathematics or science, like taking English as a content subject, it will not be successful. That's the point. Okay, it will not be successful. You need to teach English as a skill subject, not as a content subject. So you can't apply the same theories or techniques or methods. You apply to teach mathematics, science, or health, whatever, right? As language is a different one, skill subject. Okay, right. So that is the idea expressed here. Then we come to another area, learning the mother tongue and learning a second language, right? Another sub area. Okay. Now, but this area is not new, not new. Because already we have talked about pull of language, right? We have talked about this mother tongue interference in the process of learning a second language, right? Already we have discussed these things. We may be meeting the same things because we are going to talk about interference and transfer from the mother tongue on learning a second language, right? Interference and transfer, and then implications for teaching methods. So these are the two areas that are highlighted, under this topic, we will move on to them. Right. So there are some more information and ideas. Interference and transfer from the mother tongue on learning a second language. There are, okay, transfer, facilitation, interference up to this point, right? There are three slides. I need you to quickly go through up to this. Don't uh, talk, just pay attention to implications for teaching methods. This area. I'll give you a few minutes now because only listening will not make it effective or even efficient, right? You need to do something on your own. So therefore, just quickly go through, right? Just read one time read. Okay? Don't read 2, 3 times or try to study. Just rush through. Okay.
Still reading.
Yes, madam.
Okay. Right.
Finish, madam.
Okay. Right. We will see now. Okay, now this section deals with the interference and transfer from the mother tongue on learning a second language. Okay, already you have paid your attention to these areas, and now you have read something also, no? Okay, so I think therefore the points presented here are already clear to you. So therefore I will make it brief. When we learn a foreign language, right? The hindrance from the mother tongue is imminent. You understand that. Always there will be the interference of the mother tongue, right? Now, when we try to learn a second language or foreign language, it can be either second language or foreign language. Already we know about the mother tongue, right? And mother tongue is the dominant language. Dominant language in the sense we use it for our everyday activities very conveniently, right? Even if you are a bilingual or even multilingual, just think about the situation of these two languages. Just think that you are a bilingual. You know your mother tongue and your second language, okay? Or it can be mother tongue and the foreign language. Then when you want to express something, either in, okay, we'll just think in speaking, you want to tell something, right? You want to tell something. What is the language that comes to your mouth without thinking too much, right? Automatically, it is the mother tongue, right? Subconsciously, you select the mother tongue, which means mother tongue is the domineering language. So this dominating language, right, this dominance of the mother tongue will be a problem. It will be a hindrance. It will be something that blocks the second language acquisition or second language learning or even foreign language learning process. Okay. That is why we say learning a foreign language as a second language is much more difficult. Okay. Here we talk about learning a foreign language as a second language. Foreign language means the language which is not there in your community. It is totally from outside. Okay. And as the word suggests, it is coming from another country even. Okay. Right. Uh, there's a quotation, right? I have quoted from Robert Paul. I think this is clear to you. This quotation, did you understand this? When learn our first language, we face the universe directly and learn to clothe it with speech. Right? We face the universe directly. Now, when we talk about our uh, first language acquisition, we don't know anything, no, right? We learn the language, our mother tongue or the first language, first time we acquire. Then what does happen? We face the universe directly. Okay, we encounter the experiences directly and we try to learn to clothe it with speech, which means we try to how can we say it? We try to express the things which we see anew with a language for the first time, right? For the first time. But this is totally different when we learn the second language. What is happening? By the time you learn the second language, you already have mastered your first language, which means already you have looked at the world or looked at the universe via a language. Now, when you are going to learn another language, then we tend to filter the universe through the language already known. There will be a kind of filtering happening, right? We filter. We filter what we see in the world through the language which we already know. So it is troublesome. It makes some problems, some issues. It is not a fresh learning, a language. Okay, right. So the learners have to render a constant effort to learn. Because of that reason, learning a foreign language or second language is involving efforts, unlike the first language acquisition. And also it is an artificial process, not a natural process. Okay. This is another difference between first language acquisition and second language acquisition. First language acquisition happens automatically and naturally. Actually, the infant or the child doesn't have any effort in acquiring the first language or the mother tongue. But in acquiring the second language, definitely we have to have some efforts because we are fighting with the structures, vocabulary, everything of the already existing language in our mind when we try to learn the second language. So it is an artificial process as well as conscious process. Okay. Yeah, the difference between learning a mother tongue and a foreign language is defined by David Abercrombie. Right now, that is a bit lengthy extract. Hope you have gone through this. Right. We'll quickly read this, right? The infant has little else to do. You know, the difference between learning a mother tongue and foreign language, right? The infant has little else to do, has the strongest social compulsion to learn. A little else to do and has the strongest social compulsion to learn, is continually surrounded by the language it is learning, and has no old habits likely to interfere with what it is doing. No old habits. But the foreign language learner, whether school child or adult, is at a disadvantage compared with the infant insofar as he has many other things to do, has sometimes little urge to learn, right? Little urge to learn, encounters the language he is learning only at intervals, and finds the native language habits in continual conflict with those needed for the new language. But he is also at an advantage compared with the infant insofar as he possesses a developed intelligence and is also literate. Okay, other than this advantage, all the other points are at the disadvantage of the learner. When we talk about the second language acquisition, according to David Abercrombie's idea. I think he is giving this in simple language. So therefore, you could catch these differences, especially the disadvantages of in the process of learning second language, right? Not disadvantages of learning second language. Don't misunderstand it like that. Disadvantage stages in the process of learning second language. Only advantage is by the time a person starts learning his second language, he has a developed intelligence unlike an infant. And also he is a literate person. He can not only speak and listen, he can read and write as well. Unlike an infant, right? I think you can understand these negative points. Okay, which means the compared to the infant has little else to do, but an adult learning a second language has a lot of things to do. An infant has a stronger social compulsion to learn. Otherwise, infant will not be able to get the things done if he is unable to listen and understand, and if he is unable to speak and express the needs, right? There will be a problem now in getting the basic needs done. So therefore, the infant has to use language. There is the strongest need, unlike an adult who is learning second language. He may have little need to learn. Okay, that is one. And unlike an infant, second language learner, the adult may use the language not regularly, right? Only at intervals. All the time he is not being given language stimulus, linguistic stimulus, second language learner. But infant very often receives the first language stimulus, right? And finds the native language habits. The other biggest disadvantage of the second language learner is this: native language habits clashing with the second language forms. But that situation is not available in first language acquisition. Okay, right. So these are some differences according to this person, right? Between learning mother tongue and learning foreign language. Or the same set is applicable when we talk about learning the second language also, right? Second or foreign language compared to mother tongue acquisition. Therefore, whenever he wants to express something in a second language, he means the second language learner, he has to keep the habits of the first language in check to produce new sounds and structures, right? Which means when we are learning, when we are learning the second language, especially when it comes to productive skills, right? When we have to speak or when we have to write, we always have to double check whether we are like confused with the first language habits, whether there is any first language habit coming and occurring, right, and interfering to the productive skills of our second language. We need to check that all the time. Consciously, we need to check it. Yeah, human being is always comfortable with easygoing, right? His ears have become accustomed to the sounds of his mother tongue. Is not able to produce the distinctive sounds of the second language. Distinctive means different, right? Different from each other. So he is confused in syntactic structures also. There are problems in the syntactic structure means like grammar rules that are used to form sentences. Grammar structures, syntactic structures. So there are problems of syntactic structures also faced by the second language learner. And his conscious attempt at arranging words into syntactic patterns results in literal translation. This is the other problem. Now, what do you think? You also can try to apply these things to yourself. Apply in the sense you can check how far these things have applied to you earlier, right? When you were beginning to learn your second language, not now. Now we all know your second language, right? Very well now. At least you have a good proficiency level now. But when you were starting to learn your second language, the beginner time, right? Definitely you must have been affected by these issues. Literal translation. That means you, when you need to produce something in the second language, you first think in your mother tongue, then translate it into the second language. And when the patterning in the two languages differs, he produces ungrammatical structure. So this is the aftermath, the outcome, the negative result of literal translation. When the patterning in the two languages differs, right? When the second language patterns are different from the first language patterns or structures, then he produces ungrammatical structures due to the clash, due to the difference. Okay, right. So this tendency to replace the sounds and structures of the second language with those of the mother tongue is known as the pull of the mother tongue, which we earlier discussed. Earlier discussed means even during the previous session, we talk about pull of the mother tongue, right? So you have a detailed explanation on how pull of the mother tongue happens here. Okay, right. Is this part clear to you? Now, earlier you have gone through this on your own, but now, do you think this idea is clear to you? The concept of pull of the mother tongue? This part? If you have a doubt, I hope you would raise. Okay? Yeah. So then, in psychological terms, this phenomenon is known as transfer. Right? Now, we have three important words here. Three key terms: transfer, facilitation, interference. Right? So you need to understand the impressions behind these three terms. What do they mean? Transfer. This transfer may be either positive or negative, right? So you associate the word transfer either with negative transfer or positive transfer. In those matters in which the two languages do not differ, right? That means we are going to talk about the positive transfer. So then how does positive transfer happen? When the two languages are similar, right? Not 100% similar, but when there are similarities rather than differences. When there are more similarities than differences. The habits of the first language will help in the learning of the second language. So this is called positive transfer. In one word, facilitation. Facilitation is another term for positive transfer. And on which grounds does positive transfer happen? When both languages, mother tongue and the second language, are more or less similar in their structures. But in the areas where the two languages differ, then what about the opposite of this situation? When two languages are different, right? When there are considerable differences in the structures of both languages, the effect will be opposite. That means the learner will have to overcome the pull of his mother tongue to produce the sounds and the structures of the second language. And this is called negative transfer. In one word, interference, right? So when the first language interferes with the second language learning, what do you mean by that? What does that mean? The grammar structures of the first language, right, comes into contact with the grammar structures of the second language. And both the sets of grammar structures are different from each other. So then as a result, the learner finds it difficult to learn the second language structures. If the learner does not overcome this problem, then it will be really difficult task for him to learn a second language, right? The learner will have to overcome the pull of his mother tongue to produce the sounds and the structures of the second language. If he is unable to do so, then he finds it difficult to learn a second language, right? In the areas of language learning where habits play the prominent role, the force of such interference is maximum. Linguistic habits. Because this interference or negative transfer happens due to the impact of habits. You know, a person learns language via habit formation, right? Actually, habit formation comes in behaviorism, which is presented as first language acquisition theory. But if habits play a predominant role, then the force of first language interference is actually very high, it's maximum. This first language habits are interfering to the second language learning. Okay. Now, in the case of pronunciation, the pull is so great that it is almost impossible for a second language learner to acquire the pronunciation of the native speakers of the language. Now, this, which means acquiring the pronunciation of the native speakers of the language means achieving the native-like pronunciation. It is really difficult because of this mother tongue interference, pull of the mother tongue, the interference of the mother tongue. Now, what do you think about yourselves now? As you are not very much speaking today, I don't know whether you would respond. Now, what do you think about your pronunciation of the second language? I think English is the second language of most of you, right? Do you have native-like pronunciation? If I just ask, what do you think about it? Native-like pronunciation.
No, ma'am, we don't have, I think we don't have, we are not pronounced like foreigners. The native
We do not-
speakers are totally different.
Exactly, right? Exactly. So why do you think that has happened so? Why it has been difficult for us to achieve native-like pronunciation?
Whether we, the practice, if you are practice the language with the foreigners, we will continue, we can catch up.
But we
Like
don't,
that
but
Tamil
we
speaker
don't know.
has,
Yeah. Yeah. If we do not converse with the native speaker, then we will not achieve the native-like pronunciation, because the reason is actually we are not the native speakers of English. We are non-native speakers.
yes,
Because already we have a language with us.
yes,
We have the mother tongue. So therefore, it's really difficult because of our already established set of rules regarding pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, everything of our mother tongue. It's
yes.
really difficult for us to reach to the native-like pronunciation of
Native.
another language.
Mm.
That's it. Okay. So that is the idea given here because of this pull of the mother tongue. Okay, right. So far then I was talking about this mother tongue interference. Now all the time you don't have to take it as mother tongue interference, right? There is a positive side as well, facilitation. But rather than the facilitation, it is the interference because you find it not very similar, this mother tongue and the second language, right? The second language is more or less the English language for all of us, and mother tongue is either Sinhala or Tamil. So there are more differences between Sinhala and English as well as Tamil and English. But when you think about Sinhala and Tamil, rather than Sinhala and English, you might find more similarities between Sinhala and Tamil. Okay. So if you already know Sinhala, you might be able to learn Tamil easily compared to learning English. Am I correct? And if you know Tamil, it might be easy for you to learn Sinhala than learning English. Am I wrong?
Yes, ma'am. Because if you are if we have neighbors, if we are talking Tamil, if you have single neighbors, practically we can catch the language.
Okay.
If the single ones catch the Tamil, if their neighbors are there, they can catch.
Wait a bit,
That's
right?
just-
Wait a bit.
Mm.
Just forget about the neighbors. Or else from outside you get the exposure, right? Forget about that factor for a bit, right? Just think about only about the structures, right? Structures, grammar structures, especially grammar structures of Sinhala and Tamil. Don't you think they are quite similar? I'm not telling 100% same, but don't you find Sinhala grammar and English grammar to be somewhat similar than Sinhala grammar and English grammar or Tamil grammar and English grammar? Like that. The sentence structures, patterns, this pattern inside, structural aspect. Now, for one simple example, in Sinhala we have SOV pattern now. Subject, object, verb. In English, we have subject, verb, and object. In Tamil,
Yes, we have.
what?
Revived
SVO or
pioneer later.
SOV?
Yes, yes. Subject, verb, object. There. In Tamil
Yes.
also.
In
Yes.
Tamil, you have subject, verb, object, or subject, object, verb.
Subject, object, verb, madam.
Subject, verb, object.
Tamil,
Yes.
Subject, object, verb.
Sorry, subject, object, verb.
that's what I asked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Which
yes.
is similar to Sinhala also, no? Right?
Mhm.
Mama bat kava. Subject, object, verb.
Verb. Yeah.
Right? But in English, I ate rice. Subject, verb, object. In Tamil
Object.
also, I think that is similar to Sinhala pattern.
Same.
Subject, object, and verb. Right? Okay, so that is a simple example I took to explain my point. Right? So therefore, rather than acquiring language which is totally different from the mother tongue, it is easy for us to acquire or learn a language which is similar to the structures of the mother tongue. So I took examples from the languages you are familiar in our country, right? Okay, so there is a good side, as I told, right? Facilitation is there, but mostly it is the interference, because most of the time we find differences, right, other than the similarities between the two languages. Okay, right. So that discussion is that, and that's over. Hope you could get some idea. Now we are moving on to our next part, which is not a lengthy area, I think, right? Implications for teaching methods. Okay, right. Let me end the show. We have, yeah, quite a few more slides there to talk about implications for teaching methods. So, right, so let's go then. What does this say? The need for learning English is changing, right? The area where English is important is constantly increasing, right? Okay, we talk about the teaching methods here. Kind of brief intro to teaching method. So, the English curriculum, teacher training in English and transaction of English in the classroom should necessarily change to live up to the demands. These areas should be updated. That's the idea presented here, right? Curriculum, syllabus, and teacher training in English, right? And also transaction of English in the classroom. Transaction of English in the sense the use of English as the medium of instruction as well as subject,
right? One of the subjects should change, right? These areas should undergo changes now, because nowadays everything is updating, right? Getting updated, including our needs and why should we learn English also. The need of learning English. They also have undergone changes. So nowadays, students are learning English with a purpose which is totally different from the purposes of earlier children, right? Children in the students in the earlier times. So, which means day by day, why we should learn English is changing. Accordingly, our teaching methods should be updated. That's the point here. So, there are many implications in teaching English. We talk about the standards and assessments, right? Okay, just we'll go through this part. Most of the learners of English are first generation learners. There are many inhibitions for them in learning English, right? The teaching of English should address their problem. When they gain confidence, it will be easy for them to learn English easily. Till then, the assessment should be done. Okay, while maintaining the standards gradually, assessments also should be done to check their progress. Maintaining the standards, assessments should be done. Right now, the biggest problem with the learners of English is related to this matter, right? Confidence issues. In other words, actually, attitude, right? In other words, in the sense, attitude is something else, but confidence and attitude are actually like two sides of the same coin. Because most of the learners, students have confidence problems, lack of confidence due to the attitude issues. They think that English is different and it is difficult, therefore. It is outsider's language. It's not something of our own. And this kind of attitude blocks them in acquiring English, in learning English conveniently. So they lack the confidence. Whatever they know, they hesitate to use. Even if they know the English language, right? Their knowledge may be enough to use English orally, even in writing, but still they hesitate. Why is that? They have this emotional barrier, attitude. Now you have, I think you know about this Krashen's hypothesis, input hypothesis, no, sorry, not input, affective filter hypothesis. Krashen's hypothesis, one hypothesis among five, affective filter. Even if you here means the learner, right, gets the input, proper input in learning the second language, right, still the learner does not learn because there is an emotional barrier in his mind, right, emotional barrier, which blocks him acquiring the sounds or vocabulary or structures of the second language. So this emotional barrier is made of motivation, lack of motivation, no confidence, right? These kind of things. So that's a big problem. So to overcome this issue at the school level, the teachers can monitor the progress of the second language learning of the students, and also they need to assess. Right? Continually, they need to assess to check the progress. Actually, assessments are a form of monitoring the progress. They need to maintain the expected standards. At the same time, monitor the progress of the students via assessments, right? So evaluation of teacher and pre-service teacher effectiveness. When we talk about this part, actually this is related to this one, which teacher training aspect. Evaluation of teacher and pre-service teacher effectiveness. How do you understand this? The success of the English class depends mostly on the potential and attitude of the teachers. Right? You know that, right? If the teacher doesn't have the capacity to teach, then the students won't learn. And also, if the teacher doesn't have the proper attitude to teach, also proper attitude in relation to the second language, right? Now, simply to say, if the teacher is teaching English, telling the students like this, okay, Lamai, this English is really difficult to learn, but still you have to learn it. Otherwise, you will not be able to pass the exam and you will score low marks. Then you will not be able to go to a job, no? So therefore, even if it is difficult or, right, it's boring, you need to learn this, that kind of approach, right? No attitude, that is zero attitude towards the second language. If the teacher displays that kind of attitude, then the students will never ever learn the language, right? To impart good English education, the teachers have to be fully equipped, right, with knowledge and skills as well as attitude. So they should influence their students to show more interest in learning English. Okay. In many cases, it is the wrong method and substandard teachers who cause fear in the minds of the students in learning English. This fear factor, I told you, fear is coming hand in hand with this attitude, right? Fear. It's like the feeling in the mind that it's difficult to learn English. That's one thing. And the other thing is, if I use English, right? If I tell something in English, others might laugh at me. That kind of impression. Therefore, learners have a fear in learning and using English, thinking that they might be subjected to laugh. Okay, right? So therefore, it is up to the teacher to remove this kind of ideas, this kind of inhibitions from the minds of the learner. It is not simply teaching English, right? It is not simply teaching grammar. Teachers have to create the proper mindset of the learners as well. And teacher qualities have to be groomed in the training colleges themselves, right? That is where the teachers are made. So increased participation in the teacher quality conversation. Teacher quality has become subjected to the discussions now. That means the quality of the teachers, right? Language teachers, mostly English language teachers. English teachers have to be competent enough to use the language aspects in English, right? Competence. They have to use appropriate vocabulary for the situation. When we talk about the teacher quality, these matters are very important, right? The competency of the teacher. The teachers should use the relevant vocabulary for the situation that they take for teaching, and easily comprehensible words should be used in the class. That if the teacher uses difficult words, then it's really right. It does not only make the learner difficult to understand the lesson. The learners will not feel like they will not feel like learning or even listening to the teacher when there are difficult words, right? They will never ever pay their attention to. Right? So the teacher has to be competent enough to use the proper language, appropriate vocabulary, and simple words. And also grammar should be taught inductively, right? Grammar. English is a non-phonic language, so pronunciation is not easy for second language learners. Non-phonic means English is not a phonetic language. That means we do not pronounce according to the spellings all the time. There are words, right? There are words, there are phonetic words, which means spellings are organized according to the pronunciation. So even if you can't remember the spellings of some words, by pronouncing the word, you can you can you can arrange the letters in a word. Some words are like that, but there are words, there are more words in English that are not phonetic words, which means you can't guess the spelling by pronouncing the word. Non-phonic language means that. Then in some situations, by looking at the word, right? By reading the spellings, you can't get an idea regarding the pronunciation. Even if you know the spellings, you may not know how to pronounce that. There are differences between grapheme forms and pronunciations, right? So the teacher has to initiate a quality conversation in whatever task that the teachers take up for teaching. So these are the requirements expected from the teachers, nowadays teachers actually, right? Preparing English teachers to be teachers of literacy, right? Prior to preparing the students to use English, it's mandatory on the part of the policy makers to prepare the English teachers to be teachers of literacy, right? The English teachers should teach literacy, all right? How to read, how to write. The teacher should teach these aspects to the students. The point is actually we are talking about the quality of the teachers now. So before we try to teach the students how to use English, actually the teacher should be literate enough, competent enough, right? And also the teacher should make sure that they have the proper skills, both productive and receptive skills, in order to be eligible to teach the students these skills. If they lack the skills, then there's a problem regarding their quality, right? And technology integration is another aspect. The pace of learning today has exponentially increased with the multimedia in education. And technology is not meant only for the science teachers, right? Okay. Technology is more handy to English teachers than other subject teachers. So they have to be technology savvy. The English teachers should be able to handle technology in their teaching process, in the teaching learning process. So technology in various aspects. It is not only using multimedia, right? It's not only that. It involves several aspects, right? The teacher should be computer literate also. She or he should be able to integrate technology into the teaching of the English subject effectively. So there are a lot of innovative ways, and there are softwares, there are applications, several different applications that the teacher should be clever enough to use them according to the availability of infrastructure facilities of the school anyway, right? But to some extent, the teacher can integrate the technology. And ELL, that means English language learners. The success of English language teaching depends on the readiness of ELL. Readiness. They have to understand the benefits they are bound to get from learning English. Now, this readiness is also related to language factor. Attitude factor, right? Attitude in language learning. Now, however much the teacher is qualified and the teacher has the expected requirements, the capacity, knowledge, competency, everything, still, if the learners are not ready to learn English, then there won't be effective teaching learning process. After all, learners should understand why they should learn English and what are the advantages of learning English. At the first place, they should have that understanding. And they have to set targets for the teachers so that reciprocal competition will be initiated in teaching and learning. Reciprocal competition. It's like reciprocal means giving and getting. Okay. So there has to be a close bond between the students and the teacher. That's the basic idea of that. Okay, right. So that is the last discussion in this unit about now what. So far up to ELL, we were talking about the quality, teacher quality, and that has to be supplemented by the quality of EL, means the English language learners. Otherwise, the discussions that are carried out in English language classrooms will not be effective. Okay. Right. Well, so as planned, I don't have actually time to start the next unit, but never mind. By the next session, by next Wednesday, I will send you the lecture materials of the next unit, right? So I will send you the lecture materials by the next time. Please get them and read and be familiar with that part. Okay, because we are going to talk about the methods, language teaching methods and language teaching approaches in the next unit. So we are quite limited in the scope of our discussion there. Unlike this second unit, right? The second unit we were talking about quite a lot, paying attention to not only the theories, right, but also to the first language interference and also the methods, and beyond that, the implications regarding the teacher quality and learner quality. A lot of aspects we covered from the second unit. Okay, right. So if you have any question, as we have few more minutes, I am ready for anything from you. I mean, if you have any question or any doubt, you can ask now. Thinking about all the areas we have covered so far, right? 2 units we have completed by now. Anything you want to raise or ask?
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm
After you finished all the units, will you do the revisions, ma'am, for everything?
According to the availability of time, I will be doing, right? But I will not be able to repeat everything now. I have taught. Instead, I think if I would be left with some extra time, I would discuss some model questions, right? Then it might help you to frame your answers according to the sort of questions that are likely to be asked from you. Okay. Otherwise, I won't have time to repeat everything again, right? Even in the form of revision. I will think of discussing some model questions, but still I don't know if the time would be there. Okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
If the others don't have anything to get clarified, okay, we will wind up today's session and we'll start our next session with a new unit. Okay, right? Then good night all of you.
Good night, ma'am.
Good night,
Thank
madam.
you, ma'am. Good night.